Well, here we go. Welcome, everybody, and especially to our four special guests this evening. I know you can see three of them in front of you. Peter Such is going to be joining us shortly as we feature the next in our series of Essex Through the Decades, kindly sponsored by our friends at Cloud FM. This time around, we're looking at the 90s, which proved another successful era for the club as we achieved 2 county championship titles and 2 one-day trophies. And our four guests each had a crucial part to play in extending the Essex success ratio that had started, first of all, in 1979, went through the 80s and continued into the 90s. We welcome tonight our special guests, Mark Ilott, Paul Prichard, Stuart, and as I said, Peter Such will be joining us later. Great to have you with us, fellas. Thanks very much for giving up your time. We've got a lot of questions submitted by members on this forum. And we do invite further questions during the show from members. But if you are wanting to ask a question of our esteemed guests, please just use the Q&A function, which is accessible at the bottom of your screen. Straight on with the show. And Paul has kindly given up some of his time. He has to leave us halfway through the show. So Paul, in typical fashion, as used to opening the innings, perhaps we'll open up with you. I mentioned there the successful era that Essex had. What were your reflections of that time? Because you actually played through all those, certainly through the decade and early and the late ones in the 80s, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, firstly, hello to everyone and Essex members. Hope you're okay during lockdown and looking forward to seeing some cricket in August, as no doubt we all are. But hope everyone's okay. Starting mid-80s, I came into a fairly successful side, obviously, early mid-80s, and as a young lad sitting in the corner of the dressing room with the likes of Gooch and Fletcher and McEwen and all these guys, Stuart Turner, Brian Hardy. So I was very lucky to have played in the 80s and then into the 90s with the guys that are on tonight. Plus a load more, and continuing the success through the 90s, and played just a smidgen in the 2000s as well. So, 3 decades. It was very, very pleased to be able to represent Essex County Cricket Club during those times.
And indeed led us as captain to successfully lift 2 knockout trophies. We were losing finalists in one, but we draw a veil quickly over that. Let's remember the good times, those two trophies. And assisted so ably by the 2 other colleagues we can see, Mark Ilott and Stuart Law, in lifting those trophies, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what great memories and great times they were, for us all. I think after the J.K. Lever, the Neil Foster era, and Gucci was right at the end, and it was kind of a rebuilding phase, I think. And it's a well-known phrase, a rebuilding phrase, but it really was. And to put the responsibility onto Ramble to lead the line with Ashley Cowan, 2 fine bowlers. And then create a team around, what's our best chance of winning? Is it our best chance of winning 3-4 day cricket, or was it our best chance of winning 1 day cricket? And right on the cusp, I think we decided that probably the team that we had built around with, bringing in Ronnie Irani and Paul Grayson as young players, probably, the 1 day way was a way to go, although we did very well in the championship as well during that time for a little while. We did focus on the 1 day side, I must admit, and with these guys coming in first and bringing in Laurie as well. What more could you ask for? We were challenging straight away. So it wasn't a conscious decision to concentrate on 1 day cricket, but I think we knew where our strengths would lie as a group overall.
Yeah, well, we'll come to Stuart in a minute. A veritable run machine, wasn't he? And from the moment his feet landed on these shores, I think, and he first came to terms with county cricket, which was instant, made such a significant impact. But just going a little bit before that, Mark, you were part of the same era, that successful time, although you unfortunately missed out on the 91 season because of injury, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a bad back in 91. I came back from the A tour of Sri Lanka with a back injury, and I tried to play the start of the season to no avail, and had the whole summer off basically, and had a back operation in August, along with a guy called Keith Butler, who was also a young player at the time at Essex. Had it on the same day, so that whole summer was a write-off, which for a young cricketer, 20 years old at the time, you're worried about a future. But thankfully, with James Davis's help and Jeff Arnold's help actually at the time, I remodelled my action, and here I am now.
Yeah, welcome, Peter. Peter Such has joined us. Hi, Peter. We're just talking about the years and the early years of winning the title in the decade, the 91-92. Fair to say that you were still establishing yourself in the Essex side at that early stage, Peter? You'd come to us and joined from Leicestershire, hadn't you?
That's right, yeah. I joined Essex in 1990, so it was a sort of a gradual build-up. John Childs was there as the main spin bowler sort of during those years, and I played as sort of second spinner, but sort of by the back end of 92, I was sort of progressed and was sort of making more significant contributions, shall we say? Yeah. So yeah, it started to build from there. Yeah. But, wonderful years.
Yeah, good. And for you, Stuart, I suppose this was the early years of this decade. You were just reading about them back in Oz, were you? You were still pushing your claims for trying to convince the Australian selectors that you were worthy of more than one Test cap, which I think everybody who followed world cricket thoroughly agreed with, except the people that mattered, those Aussie selectors.
Yeah, my powers of persuasion weren't very good, were they? I did. I learned a lot about Essex. I played club cricket as well as cricket for Queensland with Alan Border, and he played for Essex for a number of years, and then Mark Waugh followed him. So I had a lot to live up to. I remember talking to AB about it during a club match, and he said, "Look, I put your name in front of the Essex boys. You better not go over there and disappoint me." So it depends on what you're talking about. Cricket-wise, I don't think I did. Maybe otherwise, I may have. But it was one of those times where I just wanted to play cricket. It didn't matter. It wasn't about how much you were getting paid, how much you could earn. It was about playing cricket. I came to county cricket to refine my technique, learn how to play spin, and I reckon I learned how to play spin by standing at second slip next to Gucci. And sitting down talking to Keith Fletcher as well as the other batters in the dressing room. But, to refine your technique, come over and test yourself. And I wasn't playing international cricket regularly. So every game I played was like my test match or my international game, because you're always coming up against, the England players. I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Essex. Believe me, it was, we played some really good cricket on the field. We had plenty of laughs off the field as well, which I think Essex is renowned for. Playing it tough on the field and really enjoying yourself off. Which, if you're not enjoying yourself, I think you're doing it wrong. You got to. We all started playing because we love the game. We all have fun playing the game, and that should remain until there's no more life. Really, basically. But it was a privilege and an honour to play with the players I played with, but also represent Essex, which as a smaller county. In regards to the Surreys and everyone else, what a privilege to play for them and represent the county. It was a great time.
Yeah, Paul, we won that title in 1992. Surely at the time, no one involved in and around Essex thought it would be another 25 years before we would lift the title. Was one of the reasons you mentioned there the changing face of the team? I think Neil Foster and Derek Pringle both retired together, didn't they? But was one of the reasons the number of injuries that hit the side? Because Mark told us earlier how he missed out on the 91 season, and injuries seemed to be almost accompany Essex through that decade, didn't they?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we were a bit unfortunate with injuries, and also. I think it's something that most clubs go through. Nobody has a continuous dearth of bowlers that can take 20 wickets in a championship game for 20 years on the trot. You know, there's, you know, you find your strong years, and you also find you know, the other years when, you know, you may find yourself with a team more of all-rounders suited more for one-day cricket. So, you know, I think it's still the same today. I don't think anybody totally dominates for 10 years on the trot, maybe like they did in way back. You know, there's so many forms of cricket now, and so many forms of different talented cricketers, that it's very, I'd say it's very hard to actually create a team that will win a championship or be challenging for a championship for 10 years on the trot. And we were in that situation at the time, especially in those days. So we basically had to sit down and think where our strengths were and where our slight weaknesses were, and play to those strengths and practice and focus on them. And that's what we had to do at that time.
Yeah. Another reason, of course, why perhaps we didn't get the success that we had done earlier was because we lost losing players to international calls. Mark and Peter both called up for England for the first time in 1993. Guys, I mean, what a terrific honour that was, and to both be playing in the same England side. Mark, your reflections on that?
Well, the first one was at Old Trafford, which I'm sure Peter has much fonder memories than I do. I remember sitting around the team meeting on the night before the Test match where, if you remember, a chap called, who was it now? It's a good question now. Alan Eggleston had pulled a side muscle, and he was in the original 12 and was injured, so he wasn't going to be playing in the Test match. So I thought 12 minus 1 is 11. I'm going to be playing, but they brought Daffy in, De Freitas in as a standby. I remember the team meeting between Fletch and Gucci, obviously captain and coach of both Essex and England, so we had a fair chance of getting selected. And I think a chat went along the lines of, Andy Caddy, when you bowl, do this, and Peter Suchy, when you bowl, do this, and Chris Louis, when you bowl, do this, and a Ramble, if you bowl, do this. And I thought then that I might not be playing that first Test match, and as you remember, it was the one when Shane Warne got Mike Gatting out, and history was made, and Suchy got a sixer. But yeah, no, it was quite the honour to be selected for England. I'm sure Peter has similar memories, and it was, even now, I've still got the cap on the wall, a little bit down the road there, and it's not down the road, it's like a big house, but it's and yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's fantastic memories, and as much as I didn't play those first two Test matches, just to be part of that side with the likes of Robin Smith and Stewie and Gucci and those guys, obviously such as a mate of mine from Essex as well. So it's fantastic, and to play against the likes of Mark Taylor, Michael Slater, David Boone, Mark Waugh, Steve Waugh, Alan Border, and he couldn't even get in the side, that lad there. So they were quite a strong side. So when people talk about, I had a 5 Test match career, which I did, I had a 5 Test match career against a pretty good side.
Yeah, yeah. And for you, Peter, I mean, you must have thought at the turn of the decade in the 90s that an England place seemed a long way off, didn't it?
Yeah, it most certainly was. Sort of, I was sort of struggling back end of the 1980s when everybody's playing on these green pitches with sort of high seam reader ball. So the non-batting off spinner wasn't getting much of a gig. So it was a bit of a struggle, but I was really fortunate enough to get away and come down to Essex, where things turned around in 1990. There's a few changes in terms of the regulations. You had to play on straw-coloured pitches. They reduced the number of seam strands in the ball. So that sort of brought more of a balance back to the game, say, and my career sort of built from there. But going back to the sort of the Old Trafford side of things, yeah, it was like Mark said, a wonderful experience, and a privilege to be sort of selected in the England squad there. And in the build up to the game, it had been very damp. There'd been a lot of rain around prior to the game, and a little bit of that rain had sort of stopped the pitch drying out, and we ended up bowling first, and it was a little bit damp. So there's always a little bit in for the bowler. So, fortunate enough to land it and pick up a few wickets. So it's absolutely brilliant. It was just a wonderful experience, and yeah, you never forget your first wicket. But some of the others were special too. And as Ramble said, they were a top class batting side. When you looked at their lineup, you thought, wow, that is quality.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful to get there and managed to bag a few wickets first up.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah. Stuart, we said earlier that you were still back in Oz at this time. Your reflections when you first came into the county cricket setup, were you surprised by the culture? I mean, there's always this talk that state cricket back in Aussie was far more intense than if you like, sometimes the treadmill of county cricket day in, day out. How did a guy like you flying in here, landing a contract with Essex, approach that? And what was your feelings?
Look, I learned very quickly that if you get on a roll as a batsman, you end up feeling like you're going to bed with your pads on. Because every day, you seem to be batting or in the field. So whilst Australia, we used to talk about every Shield game, 4-day game out there was an event, because you had time to finish the last game. You had a bit of a preparation time, so you might have a week or 10 days to prepare for the next one. So anyone who's got a little niggle or had a big influence in the game or bowled a lot of overs had time to recover 100% before we started the next one. County cricket didn't have that luxury. You had to, I remember playing a game at Colchester, finishing day 3. We had to drive to Durham to play a Sunday league game and then come back on the Monday to finish the 4-day game. And I didn't know what was going on. I thought this has got to be, this is mad. But it was just what it was, just how it was in the days. And I learned very quickly that if you take it super seriously, you could burn out very quickly. You need to have, as I say, you need to relax, needed to have some fun to get away from it all, because cricket can consume you when you're doing it. 7 days. Well, it seemed like 7 days a week, 9 days a week at times. But you play 9 days out of 10, and coming from a system which you had time off, that was the adjusting to do. But I was pretty lucky. I came in, we played at Hampshire in the old ground where it was, I think you could have batted left-handed blindfolded and scored hundreds down there. It was flat and fast and short and whatever you. Played a few games down there and, I got on a bit of a roll. So my introduction was quite nice. I think the fixtures suited me down to a T.
Yeah.
Unless Malcolm Marshall played.
I was lucky enough to miss him. Yeah, to miss him. I had big Cardigan Connor steaming in, bowling his, 72 mile an hour rather than thank goodness.
Hit me just there, you mean?
I said earlier that we would concentrate on those two one-day finals that we were successful in 97 and 98. We look at the 97 one first when we beat Warwickshire by 9 wickets. Well, I think you, Paul and Stuart, dominated our batting such that it was 171 for 1, chasing 170 for 8. Stuart, you opened with Paul at that time and 109 for the first wicket. A terrific memory, wasn't it? Played in front of a crowd at Lord's, the home of cricket, and you scored an unbeaten 80 there.
Yeah, mate, look, any time you play at Lord's is special. As a kid growing up, watching Ashes series, from midnight right through to 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning in Australia, dreaming of playing at Lord's, and played a county game there, but playing a final in front of a full house and playing Warwickshire. They were the one-day team of the 80s and 90s as well. They were a great side. Won a lot of trophies, with Dermot Reeve at the helm. We had a travelling crowd. I think the ground held, 30,000, 28,000, I think it held. I reckon 20,000 were from Essex. And it was just deafening. It was a home game for us, really. Set up beautifully by the bowlers. And everyone says, you win the toss, you win the game. But you still got to go out and perform. And, Chook and Ash Cowan bowled beautifully up front. Ronnie bowled a great spell as well. Spinners chipped in. I think I managed to bowl a couple of maidens, which or dot balls, which was a surprise. Now, if I had to face myself for a living, I'd bloody lick my lips every day of the week. But I think we set it up in the field, and we didn't let them escape. They had quite attacking batsmen, and the pressure we applied with the 13th man sitting in the grandstands, it set us up. The sun did come out after lunch, but you can't take it away from the way Pablo batted. We suited each other. You know, me a bit taller than Pabs. They kept bowling short at him and kept bowling full at me. So we cashed in. It was a great memory. And to do it in style like we did, you know, one down, was you know, outstanding.
Yeah. And for you, Paul, a terrific moment, mustn't it? Lifting that first trophy as skipper.
Yeah, obviously it's just something that you always remember and never, you know, just never forget. You know, it's, you know, probably the most nervous. I played in a few cup finals, obviously before with you know, in the 80s and early 90s and whatever. But as captain, it was probably the most nervous I've ever been going into a game. You know, waking up in the morning with that real sick feeling in your stomach. You know, thinking that, you know, you've got the responsibility of everyone and et cetera, et cetera. But once you get to the ground and keep going and go, then it all goes, and it's another game of cricket, especially with the guys we had. You know, that we had a really tight bunch. You know, really, you know, sort of looked after each other and encouraged each other. And as Stewie said earlier, you know, we liked each other's company and had a bit of fun, you know, when we away from the cricket ground. So once we all got together, you know, we were on it. And as Stewie said, the Warwickshire side, you know, they were dangerous all the way down. You know, they're guys batting at number 8, 9 that could take the game away from you if you weren't careful. And the bowlers did set it up. You know, everyone bowled absolutely brilliantly. We called our catches, dived everything. It was just, you know, the perfect game. If you, as a captain, you know, if your team talk says, you know, bowl, we hit the top of off stump, we give no width, you know, fielders dive and stop everything, support your bowlers, you know, catch everything that goes, because every catch is important, you know. So, you know, the team talk and the way the game actually went was absolutely perfect. And then Stuart and I went out, walking down the steps out to Lord's, you know, to the onto the outfield, looked at each other, and Stewie said to me, he said, "Look, if we win this game, we're drinking in our whites all night." And so that was no more incentive for me. So and we did.
You're looking, probably not
I mean, we obviously enjoyed the occasion so much, and drinking in the whites obviously appealed to everybody. We reserved the occasion again a year on. In 1998, we won the Benson and Hedges final. At that time, for you guys, had the feeling of perhaps nervousness changed to adrenaline? You know, you've been there before, you've done it. It's a success, and I know. You often told me, Stuart, nobody remembers runners up. You only remember winning. So if you're going to these places, winning is be all and end all, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And look, Essex I came into a winning mindset as well. You know, Graham Gooch was still around the club. Keith Fletcher was the coach, and you know, Prichard played for a while out of that group we had, and it was a winning mindset. So that was never in question. Every time we got to even it was round one, you know, we had that winning mindset. Get on the field. Let's try and, you know, take the opposition apart. And you know, we just played really good, consistent cricket, knowing that every base was covered. We had bowlers who could, you know, restrict or take wickets. We had batters who could, you know, survive difficult periods and then take the game away. So, and our fielding unit was probably one of the better ones going around. You know, we had very mobile fielders. You know, great wicket keeper batsman Robbie Rollins. So, you know, we had all bases covered. We just had to put it together on every day, and you know, more often than not, we did.
Yeah, that game was played over 2 days. Essex scored 268 for 7, and then the rain set in. We all had to come back the next day, and for a long time, Peter, it didn't even look as if we were going to get on the field, did it? I mean, it just rained. It was grey, miserable. One was thinking perhaps of going in the indoor nets for a bowl out.
Yeah, that was very much an option, really, because of the way that the weather had panned out for us there. We'd had a cracking first day. We'd got a really good total on the board in tricky batting conditions. You know, the guys played beautifully. sort of Pritch and Nass got big runs there, and we had a fantastic total on the board there. And it was one of those things where we were saying, we've got to get out there, we've got to play, we can't go to a bowl out, because, you know, with the bowling attack that we've got, they're not going to get these. And so it's one of those sort of things where we were just all looking at the clouds thinking, go away, go away.
For once.
Yeah. And Mark, Stuart mentioned earlier about what a fine job the bowlers had done. Couldn't have been better illustrated by you. Really just completely undid the innings. Leicestershire's reply, didn't you? 3 for 10 when we finally did get back on the field, and really settled the game just with those figures.
I mean, look, you bowl in partnerships. I know there's a question there about Sachi and John Charles, but yeah, it swung. I mean, I tend to swing it. I did always swing it at Lords, and that day it swung. They missed it, and LBW's a couple of wickets hit the stumps, and yeah, there was probably a few leg side wides in there as well, but the ones that weren't leg side wides were decent nuts. So it did swing a lot. It was certainly bowler friendly conditions, but like Shuey said earlier, it's one thing having conditions that suit you, it's another thing to execute your skills. And I think what happened to us by that stage, like the mid-90s, certainly for me, we knew our roles. No, I knew my roles to open up with a new ball and try and get 1 or 2 out, if not go for less than 2.5, 3 and over, as it was in those days. These days, you know, you go a lot more than that. You know, I bowled the death as well. You know, had Sachi who was going to come on and contain and hopefully nick a few out in the middle. We knew that he was going to have a straight mid wicket and a long on and bowl to that field. We knew our roles. That is so much. That doesn't enough help as a cricketer knowing what your job is to do. And you've got Shuey talking to you from slip or pitch at mid off, come and working with me, and those things. Not enough is put onto that. You know, yes, we're all good cricketers. We wouldn't be there if we weren't. But to execute your skills is a lot easier when you know what skill you've got to try and execute.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, good, mate.
And Paul, you modestly forgot or chose not to tell us that you got 92 in that particular game, which I think you know you just really revelled in the Lord's occasion, didn't you?
Yeah, well, yeah. I always enjoyed batting at Lords, even in Championship cricket with small crowds, or no, I just love batting at Lords. But on that occasion, I don't think I laid a bat on the first 6 overs. It was going sideways, and Paul Nixon was chirping me from behind the stumps, you know, saying, you know, you need a wider bat, etc., etc. You know, I did turn around to him at one stage and say, look, mate, you know, I'm quite happy to swap. I'll take your gloves and you take this bat if you think you can do any better. And he did laugh, but it went sideways for a while. And, you know, some days you nick one and you walk off, like we did in the Lancashire game where we do quite so well, which you wouldn't mention. But other days, you know, you play and miss, and then you smack one out of the middle and the game feels a lot easier all of a sudden. You're off and running. But that's the life of a opening batsman. You just don't know how it's going to pan out.
No.
But, you know, once you hit a couple in the middle and the ball got slightly older, then it became a bit easier. And Nasser came in and played a great, you know, a great role. And I think we were sort of halfway through the innings, and because I played a miss for about the first 5, 8, 10 overs, you know, we sort of stood in the middle and said, right, one of us has got to go here, just to try and get us up to a total where we can't go. And I said, look, you know, I'll go. You play you play your game. I'll just go and see what happens. And lucky enough, I just kept slapping it over cover or back to point or wherever it went. I just kept slapping it, and until I finally holed out for 92. So
yeah.
One
point of interest. Yeah, but I mean, one point of interest, by the time you got to 92, I'm sure you were feeling fully fit. But interestingly, you'd missed the build-up to the final, hadn't you? Because you'd been out with the stress fracture of the back. I don't think you played in the semi-final or the quarter-final, did you, Paul?
No, I had a stress fracture of the shin, so I was in plaster for a while. Yeah. But yeah, it was. In fact, Ronnie and I both went to Germany, I think, and tried to get over. He got over a side strain, and I got over a shin problem by having some treatment in Germany, if I remember rightly.
Right.
Sure, it wasn't the Munich Beer Fest.
Yeah, I don't exactly right. I don't quite know what we did there, but anyway, it worked.
Dr. Muller Woolfart.
They were still in their whites, Peter. That was what it was. Paul, you're gonna leave us soon, haven't you?
I have, unfortunately, and yeah, thanks. Great to see you all, guys. I will say one thing to Stewie Law though. He was my first overseas captain, first overseas player as captain, and my phone call to him to actually invite him to come and play cricket for Essex was a bit of an eye opener to me. So I kind of knew what we were getting. You know, I phoned him in Brisbane from my house in Colchester, and I got this voicemail from Stewie Law saying, "G'day," and I said, "Hello," and he said, "G'day," and I said, "Hello," and he said, "G'day," and I said, "Hello, it's Paul Prichard here, Essex County Cricket Club." He said, "Gotcha, just leave a message and I'll get back to you if I want to."
Thank goodness you did.
And when I finally did speak to him, I talked to him. I said I'd spoken to AB about, you know, speaking to you about becoming our overseas player, and he said, "Oh, it'd be an absolute honour, and to come over and play for Essex, blah blah blah." And I said, "Well, obviously we've got to talk about the financial side." And he went, "Don't worry about that, mate." He said, "Don't worry about that." He said, I'll be on the plane whenever you need me." We'll sort it out. So, you know, as an overseas player, that's it.
Yeah, sorry, add to that as well, that having played with Mark Waugh, who I thought was the best player I'd ever seen, Stewie was at a county level. I mean, I don't know about test level because Stewie had a short go, but at county level, he was the best I've seen. He was awesome.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah.
That's from a bowler.
How many wines you had, mate?
Thank God I didn't have to play against him over Lancashire.
How many wines you had, mate?
When he was at Lancs, I was injured.
Paul, thanks for your time. Appreciate that. Great to talk to you. We'll catch up with you again soon, I'm sure.
Cheers, Bruce.
Love you all, guys.
Take care, buddy.
We'll keep on the theme of cup finals or cup matches, guys, because we've had a few questions come in concerning about the 1997 cup winning side, but not so much the final as the semi-final. It's become somewhat infamous now. I think the semi-final when we beat Glamorgan by 1 wicket. Stuart, you'd done your bit. You'd set us up for a score, for a decent score. You got 90, and we'd reached 280 before the 5th wicket fell, and chasing 301 for 8. You know, it had to be Essex, didn't it? Although perhaps it didn't, given Essex's history of managing to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. But it was quite a feisty encounter, wasn't it? I think Ronnie Irani had a spat with Thomas at one stage, hadn't he? We lost a couple of wickets. I think there was a horrendous run out when the two batsmen, one of them was Ashley Cowan, both found themselves at the same end. A typical running from Essex on occasions. It got to 296 for 8, and we came off the field. But what had led up to that was a certain confrontation between you and Robert Croft, wasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's what it was, wasn't it? I mean, it was bad light, and whilst we were, I mean, it hadn't got any worse, but Danny Law was smacking it everywhere, you know, and was looking like the game was won. He then got out. Wakar Yunus came back on, obviously had a yard or two when he bowled. And it was me and a guy called Tim Hodgson batting at the time. And I just, when he came back on, I think he bowled Tim first, and Tim had played him, he was a left-hander, Tim was. He played a missed 2 out of 2. And I just turned to the umpire and said, how dark's it got to get? Because as players, we're the last ones to know what the laws are. You know, we just played a game. I haven't got a clue what the laws are. And so the umpire's a guy called David Constant. He said to me, are you appealing against the light? I went, well, if I can, yes. But I don't know. He said, hold it a minute. So he ran off to square leg to see Chris Balderstone, who was at square leg. And at the time, Crofty, who was a mate of mine, it wouldn't have happened had it have been somebody else. So I'd have just said, go away and be on your way. Because it was Crofty, who's a mate of mine, I've toured with him. He come across to me, said, come on, Rambo, let's play. We've got a lot of people here from Cardiff, you know. And I, in words I won't use now, basically said I couldn't care how far they'd travelled to watch us go on cricket. If we can play tomorrow, and the forecast is great, we'll play tomorrow. And he went, oh, you know, it was all right half an hour ago when Danny Law was smacking him everywhere. I said, yeah, but I'm not Danny Law. I'm like, I can't hold a bat, so I want to go off. And I forget what happened, but basically I think he lost balance and put his arms out to sort of get his balance on me, and I just helped him get his balance back up again. And it looked on TV a lot worse than that.
And it wasn't helped by the fact it was on Sky, wasn't it, Mark?
It was on, I think it was on BBC actually, because I remember Tony Lewis.
Right.
Yeah, Tony Lewis, obviously a Welshman himself, said it was the worst he'd ever seen on TV. Well, I've seen a bit worse than that. But yeah, look, we came out the following day. Wackard came. We went off a bad light, obviously. Wackard came on, and he didn't get. I think Tim nicked the first ball for a single out the third man. I nicked the second ball, the sixth ball, the fifth ball. I think the third man. He then got Tim Hodgson out. I forget what happened then. It was obviously 9 down, 2 or 3 to win, and Darren Thomas comes in, bowling in, swinging Yorker to Sachi caressed him. I didn't smack him, caressed him through the covers for 4, at which point I ran through the crease. I just said run, because I didn't know how. I think we needed 3 to win, 3 to win. And it was always going for 4, and we ran. I remember running through the crease towards the commentator's box and giving a big signal to Tony Lewis in the commentary box about how we won. And I think I hugged Sachi too much. And I think he probably pushed me away as well. But yeah, it was all good. It was a great game of cricket. It had everything, didn't it? Runs, controversy, beamers at Stewie Law, and apparently it had been written in the papers in Wales that how they found Stewart's weak point was bomb a beamer. Well, that's the only way you can get him out. Then fair play. It had everything. Great game of cricket, and we won it.
Yeah. Well, Peter, you were the man at the moment there. You're the headline maker. How did you feel, first of all, sitting in the dressing room, knowing that if a wicket fell, Essex hopes completely reliant on you, and then of course that wicket did fall, and out you strolled. I mean, I can recall back, if you look at the footage, you looked the calmest man in the ground, were you?
Probably not. No. I was sort of sitting there, sort of thinking to myself, I hope nobody gets out, and then. Obviously, Tim Hodgson nicked one, and I'm out in the middle there. So the good thing about it, from me being a coward with little ability, was the fact that Darren Thomas had it in his mind to try and York me. So he bowled 3 or 4 balls, and he's looking to get it as full as possible. Then the last one of that over, he missed, and it was a low full toss, and I just managed to sort of get a bat on it. I was actually using one of Gucci's old bats as well, and it went like a bullet through extra cover. So that was brilliant.
Great
and then
shot.
Sort of, all hell let loose, really. There's still a decent crowd in there because obviously next day of the game, that sort of thing, we're at home and there's still quite a few people in there.
And then we celebrated didn't we celebrate by going to Danny Law's wedding, didn't we? Danny Law got married that same day.
Absolutely. That was I was going to come on to that. Danny Law had booked his wedding for the slip day of the NatWest semi-final, and it rained on the first day, so that had pushed the game back, and then bad light had intervened. So he's meant to be getting married in the afternoon, and we're playing cricket, and he's playing. So we all sort of we all rocked up to his wedding in shorts and t-shirts, and having had a skinful. So it was quite a memorable occasion. Not sure for them, but for us it was.
I was dressed for it because I was out the night before, so I had me suit and tie on, mate. I was dressed for it. I made up for it. I brought the class.
But Stewie, it's interesting. What was it like for a guy coming from Australia, and we sort of referred to the, if you like, intensity that you were used to in the Sheffield Shield matches. I'm not saying it wasn't intense over here, but it just seemed to be a lighter atmosphere. So what it was like for you being around these guys in the dressing room? I mean, was it a culture shock? Did you have to learn to start thinking English?
No, it wasn't a culture shock. The big difference was the diversity within the dressing room was completely different to what we're used to in Australia. So I had to get used to that. The way that the language we used, whether it be good or bad, the language we used had to be of a certain quality. And you know, I had to learn that very quickly. You know, Robbie Rollins used to pull me up, you know, a lot of the time, saying, "Hey, mate, easy what you're saying there," and then trying to get to understand what was going on as a naive Australian. You know, didn't really understand it until, you know, probably a week or two in, and you get the gist of it. But look, I don't think we had the one thing in our favour is that we all love playing cricket. So we had that you know, continuity that we all had. Made it very easy. The dressing room, these guys had played international cricket, been around the game for a long time, and you know how a dressing room works. You know, it's not about, you know, all about one person. It's about how we can all get the best out of each other, and I think we did that very well. You know, there were times we were all out together. There were times when, you know, there's only a handful of us, but you know, when it came to the crunch, you know, we were stuck together like glue, and on the cricket field, that was definitely the case.
I think it was important there, Paul, as Stu mentioned, is that we all wanted each other to do well. You know, I mean, I obviously, as a bowler, I wanted to get wickets, but I was equally as happy if Ashley Cowan got them, or Sachi or John Childs or whoever it was, or Ronnie Irani got them. You know, and that wasn't always the case when I played previously. I think in that era there, we all had glory in each other's success. You know, whether it be Nasser getting the runs, or Stewie, or even Gucci towards the end of his career. You know, I used to love watching Gucci back, so I knew when he got in, I had a day off. It's fantastic. And I think that's important, I think, to realise that, you know, certainly my England career, short-lived as it was, you cared about yourself in those early 90s, because you knew that if you had a couple of bad games, you were out, as I showed. So I think I was more confident about my own performance in the England setup than I was with Essex. I knew I was going to play, and I didn't care who got the wickets as long as somebody did. Yeah, basically, I got them, great. But if Stewie Law got them with his leg spinners, medium paces, whatever he wanted to bowl, he could do what he wanted. If Sachi got them, happy days. You know, and I think that was important.
Yeah. You referred there, Mark, to other people getting wickets. We had a question in from Bill Allen for you, Peter, specifically.
Sure.
Your partnership bowling with John Childs, it was so successful. I mean, you were the most successful combination around the county scene for a number of years. What was your reflections bowling with Charlie?
He's a wonderful, genuine bloke who was very helpful, very, very supportive, and he's also a very, very talented bowler. So when you've got someone of that quality at the other end there, it helps you. It lifts your own game, and there are times when you can actually profit from his quality at the other end there, because they might sort of take a few more risks against you because he's bowling so well. And the other thing that came into it as well was the fact that we used to play on some dry pitches down in the sort of the Essex area. We had outground cricket, so they always offered for the spin bowlers there, sort of Ilford, Southend or Colchester. There was always something in it for the spin bowler. So you had that to help. And there's another big help to me in my career, and he's actually sitting on the sofa there, Mark Ilott. As an off-spin bowler, if you've got a left-arm seam bowler in your team, he creates a little bit of rough outside the off stump, and it's worth 10 or 15 wickets a season to you. So the combination was right, and the pitches that we played on was right. And the one thing that you have to have as a spin bowler is runs on the board, because you need the game to go deep into the last day to be truly effective and win the game. So we had all of those things going on that came together at the time, and that made it easier.
Yeah. Well, it was a pity that Mark wasn't playing in a certain game at Colchester in 1997 when we played Leicestershire, because you managed to achieve a world record, Peter. And I know some people are stats people, others aren't, but these certainly do bear considering. 86 overs, 49 maidens, and 4 for 94. And one of the memories that Paul Prichard had of when you bowled 72 overs, of you sprinting around the boundary to cut off what seemed like a certain boundary and saving 2 runs. That was a marathon. I mean, what a marathon stint that was for you.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that you did. It was a very flat pitch. Leicester was sort of quite negative. They didn't want to play a game of cricket. They weren't interested in any declarations, that sort of thing. So, you know, we batted till mid-afternoon on the first day and then fielded for the rest of the game. It was weird. Sort of, and, you know, I got the ball in my hand, and when I got going, I thought, well, I might as well just keep going. And then someone said to me at tea time on the last day, you know, you're only a few overs short of the championship record for most number of overs. So that was it. Okay, right. Give me the ball. I'm just going to bowl until the game's over. So, yeah, I'm not sure I sprinted around the boundary, though. I'm not sure where you got that one from.
You hadn't seen the way the other 10 were going after the ball by that stage, Peter, so perhaps you were sprinting at that stage.
Well, perhaps.
Yeah. Stuart, that was hard work for you, that game, because not only did you have to field, but you scored 175 in the game, didn't you?
I did score. I scored some runs, but I do remember on late day 4, fielding out at deep point or deep cover, and I grabbed a chair from the crowd. And I sat down thinking, as the boys said, you know, when a game is going nowhere and the opposition has got absolutely no, you know, interest in creating a game, you do lose the will to live. So Sachi had another will for maintaining, you know, that intensity all that way through. But it was, you know, I mean, Colchester was a good place to play cricket because it had a bit of pace and bounce in at the wicket, and it spun more and more as the week went on. So I really enjoyed our outgrounds as much as Chelmsford as well. You know, we played at Ilford, Southend, and Colchester. They were all good, unique to their own environments, but provided everybody with different opportunities. You know, fast bowlers on day 1 and 2 got a bit out of it. Batters, if you batter well, it was flat, and outfields were quick, and it spun as the game wore on. So look, they were tremendous cricket wickets, and you had to play well to get results on them. Unfortunately, that one was just a little bit too flat.
And Laristo's wine bar.
Did a bit day 1 though. I must admit, it did a bit with that day 1.
Yeah. Well, look at season 1995, a special one for both you and Peter, Mark. You both got 77 first-class wickets that season. Essex finished 5th in the table, and perhaps what we were really missing was a run machine that's just sitting in the corner there, Stuart Law. Had he been around at that time in that season, I'm sure we would have been a lot closer towards lifting another title. But I mentioned that because that was the year of your 9 for 19 at Luton, Mark.
Yeah.
Talk us through that. And when a bowler gets 9 for 19 and takes 14 for 103 in the match, you can at least expect that he finishes on the winning side. But this was Essex you were playing for, and it didn't happen, did it?
Well, it was a crazy day. I remember 30 wickets fell in the first day, and Paul Taylor, the left armer from Northants, he got, I think, a 7 for or 5 for in the second dig as well. And I think Rolly got his first 50 for the club. Robert Rollins got his first 50 odd not out in the first innings. And we bowled them we batted first and got bowled out for not a low score, obviously, but it was in hindsight, a decent score. We then bowled them out for nothing. We then got bowled out again. And it was, again, one of those days, like I said, the Leicestershire final, it swung and they missed it. The umpire gave it out, and I got a hat trick of LBWs without knowing we had LBWs.
Just a question, when you got 9 for, who got the other wicket?
Ronnie. He got, I think he got David Capel out, caught behind Robert Rollins. I had about 5 or 6 at the time, so I wasn't too bothered. If I'd had 8, I'd have been gutted, but I had about 5 or 6. In fact, as I'm sitting here, the balls from that were just there. The only bit of memorabilia my wife allows in the house are those balls, because the room will never come in, so they're underneath the TV.
Peter, that was a good year for you as well, wasn't it? With the ball, 8 for 93 at Colchester. It wasn't all bad news, and it wasn't all out of hard work and toil. I'm sure it was hard work and toil, but you were getting rewards on that occasion. 8 for 93 against Hampshire at Colchester. You picked up 12 for 178 in the match at Chelmsford against Worcestershire. And that game with Hampshire got another 3 wickets in the second inning. So you were in vintage form at that stage, weren't you? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I was probably I had a period from, say, maybe late 92 through to sort of back end of the 90s where I was probably bowling at my best in my career. And that was a big year. And again, like I said, you had opportunities to play on outgrounds. So there was always a little bit in the pitch for you there. So it was always always a good opportunity. But yeah, it was a big year. Sadly we didn't sort of make too much of it in terms of challenging for titles and those sorts of things there. But it was a big year. I remember the Colchester one because we actually followed Hampshire on in that game. So I ended up bowling all day, and we took the extra half hour. A long one that was, but it was. But then again, if you don't bowl, you don't get wickets, and if you don't get wickets, you get a P45. So what the hell? Get on with it.
Yeah. Stuart, I mentioned right at the start of the programme how you settled in immediately to life at Essex, scored centuries in all four matches of the competition in the first season you were there. Did that ease? Did you feel any pressure when you came over? I mean, overseas player, the expectancy is that he's going to be a shining light all the time. Very well thinking that, but the overseas player's got to prove it, hasn't he?
And look, I came over, as I said earlier, that Alan Boyd had recommended me, so I knew that I had to, put in a good shift. Otherwise, when I landed back in Brisbane, he'd have been there to kick me up the backside for a start. But I think the dressing room and the relationship that I built with Paul Prichard, even before I arrived in England, really helped me settle into life into Essex. And to me, it wasn't just about the cricket. I had to really buy into what the boys were thinking, buy into their culture, and try and add different values, away from the cricket as well. As an overseas player, I didn't really know my role the first year, and I grew into it as the years went by. And you're offering advice to not only all the dressing room, but particularly the youngsters. And I had a really good relationship with a lot of the youngsters there. Ash Cowan, Stevie Peters, Graham Napier. Really enjoyed, working hard with those guys and getting them to become, the cricketers they wanted to be. Whether it's just be a shoulder to cry on, advice and what have you. In my limited experience in my first year, I didn't really offer that much in that sense. But as my years grew at Essex, and I understood what was going on, and I got to play a bit more international cricket during that time as well. And I think the advice that I had to offer was great. And for these guys to sit down and talk in a very open and honest, conversation, which to this day doesn't really happen either. I think if you're not telling someone the truth, you're not actually helping them at all. You're just extending the bad times that they may have. So I was very, very truthful, which did hurt me a few times. Lost me a lot of friends, but I can still wake up in the morning knowing that I've given it everything. I can be as honest as I can be, and I can go about my day.
Yeah.
I think, well, if I could add to that, I think what Stuart said there is spot on. There were times that he said things to me that I may have taken not the wrong way, I may have taken offence to, but ultimately the thing that Stuart always did, he did it from a good place. He might have told you the truth, he might have told you in a way that is quite brash, but he did it because he wanted you to get better. And you either took it on board and got better, or you had a hissy fit and thought you didn't like him anymore. If you did that, then you're the weaker person. And I do still to this day maintain that I hold Stuart in the highest esteem. I think he's a great, fantastic cricketer. Obviously a very good coach to do what he's doing now. And I would still recommend any young player listens to him.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Earlier on, we talked about the camaraderie. Sorry, Stuart.
Paul, Mark's right there. When you sit there and you talk to players, you're trying to beat a team. And I was brought up to believe that there is one captain. He goes out and basically tosses the coin, and he has the final say. But on the field, you've got 10 other blokes out there trying to win the game as well. And if your advice, is only coming from the captain, well, it's only one message. But if you've got a lot of ideas coming in, it's up to the captain then to cipher through all the information that's there to come out with a plan that's going to suit the partnership going at the time. And that was my thoughts and why I used to go. Yeah, we did have a fallout chalk a couple of times, but it wasn't because I thought you're rubbish. You need to pull your socks up and move on. It was, mate, I've seen what you can do. You're a hell of a lot better than what you're actually showing us out there.
Absolutely.
And whether it was a kick up the pants or you fell out with me for a day and a half, you know, by the end of the game, we're back in, you know, hugging each other, having a beer. So that's the way that cricket was. That's how I remember it. You learn the harsh way,
Absolutely.
and you end up being a better person for it as well.
Yeah. Peter, you echo those sentiments?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, with Stuart, you always knew where you stood. He would tell you what he saw. He'd tell you what he thought, and it was for you to sort of sift through it and make what you wanted of it. But the advice, from my perspective, always came from a really good place, and it was really solid. And it was all about how are we going to get better, how are we going to win the game, and let's move ourselves on. So it was never a problem for me. No.
Stuart mentioned there about captaincy, Peter. Also one for you, Mark. Were you always responsible for setting your own field, Peter? Did you insist on setting your own field, or did you work with the captain on that?
Obviously, you work with the captain, but to a certain extent, when you reach a certain level in the game and have a certain amount of experience, and you've played together for a long period of time, the field pretty much sets itself. You know, you'd come on to bowl, and so would go to short leg, somebody would go to silly point, someone would stand at slip, somebody would stand at straight mid wicket, that sort of thing there. And you were only sort of talking with the captain or other senior players about one, maximum two fielders when it came to it, because you knew what you were doing, you knew the conditions, you had a real good understanding of the opposition, and it almost ran itself. But it was just sort of now and again when things went wrong, then you needed a bit more input, a bit more support, a bit more advice, that sort of thing there. Or you were just talking about one fielder. You know, do you have silly point and short leg, or do you put someone on the drive? That sort of thing there. That's what it came down to.
Right. Because you played for a while under Fletch, didn't you? Who was perhaps one of the best con merchants around, wasn't he? Insofar as making the opposition thinking that pitch was doing something when it really was as docile as anything. But his field placings, and if you were particularly your Charlie picked up a wicket, all of a sudden there was fear going through the batting lineup, the opposition batsman.
Yeah, I never actually played as Fletcher's captain. He was coach when I was there, and he was absolutely brilliant, incredibly astute. He would work players out. He'd just look at the grip, the way they stand, the way they play, and he'd come to you and give you some thoughts and advice. And captaincy-wise, sort of, Graham was the first captain that I had at Essex, and for me, he was the ultimate, because he was just wonderful bloke, fantastic player, but he was also a guy who would do everything. He would sort of be first out on the field there, one of the last off there. He would field wherever he needed to field, all of those sorts of things there. And he was just such an inspirational captain to look up to and think, you know what, if he's doing that, then I need to pull my finger out and try and get close to his standards.
Yeah. And Nasser, you were captained by Nasser a few times, weren't you, Mark?
Yeah, no, I difficult really, because I like to think that whoever was my captain, whatever shirt I was wearing, whether it be an Essex one or on the odd occasion an England one, I tried my hardest. But in Nasser, I found somebody who got me, and he knew what buttons to press and how to bring. And I hold Nasser in the highest esteem, and I hold a few people in the highest esteem. But you know, he's a bright bloke who knows people, and for me, I know Darren Gough speaks highly of him as well as his England captain. I thought he was a fine captain, and I would probably go that extra bit harder for him, which sounds crazy because you should do that anyway. But for some reason, I found him to be a very good captain for me, certainly.
Yeah. Well, time's moving on rapidly. We have got a few more questions. I'll throw this one open to you all. Most cricketers would have been playing championship or 50 overs or 40 overs cricket at the same time. How difficult or easy was it to switch from one format to another? You, Stuart, to start us off with that one, the various different formats of the game.
From a batting point of view, I tried to play the same way every day, whether it was 4-day cricket or 1-day cricket. And the only thing that I changed in my mind was my tempo. So 4-day cricket, you might take a little bit longer to actually assess the conditions, get in the red ball. Certainly did
a lot more than a white ball. Well, particularly when you're talking about Dukes and Kookaburra. The Kookaburra white ball does, well, these days there's absolutely nothing. It's joyless for the bowlers and happy birthday for the batters. So for me it was, you know, I just tried to play the same way. You know, I often use defence as attack. And, you know, the bowlers out there will know that if you show a full face of the bat and you've got time to play the bowler then goes, Christ, how am I going to get this bloke out? And if they start trying harder, they start spraying it a bit more, gives you more opportunities to score. And, you know, if that wasn't the case, you had a bowler who was dominating you, well, you had to try and put the pressure back onto them. And whether it was 4-day cricket or 1-day cricket, that's how I played it. We didn't have the 2020 in that stage, but I tried, you know, I tried to take that game on a little bit quicker. I was explained as a young kid, by a coach of mine back in Queensland. He said the main difference between, you know, 2-day cricket or, you know, multi-day cricket compared to 1-day cricket is in 1-day cricket, you get to show your skill set a lot earlier. And, you know, to understand how that was as a, you know, young 15, 16-year-old, I didn't quite get it. But as I grew and understood playing for Queensland, you know, we'd play 4-day Shield game, at the end we'd play a 1-day game. So red ball, white ball. We didn't have to have 2 days white ball preparation to play a white ball game and then back to 2 days prep. We just played. To me, it was a cricket ball. It didn't matter what colour it was. If they bowl a bad ball, it's going for 4. So I didn't change too much. The only thing that did change was my mental approach and tempo, you know, trying to score runs quicker, not by hitting sixes, but by, you know, using feet and running hard between the wickets, which I didn't do too much of either.
And for you other two guys, of course, you've also got the pressure of either taking wickets, but if not taking wickets, economy, haven't you? Which was a key thing. I mean, it's a strange game, this limited overs cricket, where it's more important to keep the runs down than take the wickets, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, again, in our era, we had the Duke's ball. We still played 1-day cricket with a red ball. So my job at the beginning of the innings was no different to really what it was in a 4-day game. It was I'd have 2 or 3 slips. I'd probably have a short leg in as well if it was swinging, which I often do with the Duke ball. It changed obviously at the end of the innings. You know, what I was one of the main bowlers at the death in those days. And getting back to Peter's such as comments about the captaincy and who run the field, like he said, set itself early doors. Anytime it changed was at the death. You know, was I going to bowl leg stump Yorkers or off stump Yorkers? Was I going to the third man back or the fine leg back? And we'd work together to work out where I was going to bowl. And that depended on the batter. So, yeah, I mean, 1-day cricket, you wouldn't find yourself bowling a 1-day format in a 4-day game very often. Maybe occasionally when a run chase came on, but occasionally. So I think the game, well, Stuart would know more than I would, as with such they're involved in the game now. I'm not. The game, I think, changed a bit more with 1-day cricket now. I think where, you know, they do bowl to contain now, and where can they get hit and where can they defend? Where in our day, you bowled and got wickets. You tried to, certainly.
Yeah. And for you, Peter?
I tried to keep the game as simple as possible, no matter what format I was playing in. So when it came to sort of 1-day cricket, I saw my role as to try and bowl as many balls as I could in good areas there. The only thing that changed was the fields that you had. So normally you might have mid on up, you'd always have a long on out, that sort of thing there. So it was the field that changed as opposed to the way that you bowled to a certain extent. You might bowl a little bit straighter there, but ultimately you're still trying to hold length and spin the ball hard. And I just tried to keep it as simple as possible. And that sort of helped me out. And my way of progressing into the Essex team was actually through 1-day cricket. When I first came down to Essex in 1990, I played a little bit of championship cricket and no 1-day cricket. And then the following year, I started to play all the 1-day stuff, and that was my way into the team there. And I just felt that if I had a very simple method and one that was transferable across both formats, then that would help me.
Yeah.
It's a different game now, and you'd have to adapt an awful lot more. But you still back yourself to succeed in a different way.
Basics are still the same though, Sachi, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
They work.
Again, question has come in from Mike Stringer. We'll start with you, Stuart. Any particular opposition that you didn't like coming up against, or any reason you always felt they're a little bit of a feisty bunch, or somebody where you always enjoyed scoring runs off their attack more than anybody else?
Well, the team I didn't like playing against the most is the West Indies. That's when they had, 18 fast bowlers who all bowled about 95 mile an hour. And you see that on the TV, Winston Benjamin, medium pace. He wasn't medium pace. He bowled sharp as, the next one. In county cricket, I really enjoyed playing guys that were playing international cricket. I loved playing Yorkshire. Yorkshire had a real, solid fast bowling attack. Chelmsford in the time when I was there was had pace in it. Wasn't a big turner as such, was it, Pete? Didn't turn much, but had pace and bounce in it. And flew onto the bats. So I found they were a great challenge. You had Darren Gough, Chris Silverwood, Paul Hutchison, Ryan Sidebottom, those guys. What a challenge. Matthew Hoggart at times. And I really enjoyed that aspect of the county game when you came up against a team like that. That Yorkshire were they're hard as nails. The Northerners. They want to be a republic as well. But they were good cricketers. We really had good battles. Goffey was not only a character and a good bloke around off the field, but on the field, gee whiz, he could let him go. He was nasty when he wanted to be, but a quality bowler. And I really enjoyed playing against guys like that. Andy Caddick, Somerset, to play against Andy Caddick, one of the best bowlers England's ever had. And to be successful against guys like that was a real turn on. So, there were teams I didn't like playing against as much. I didn't like going to Gloucester. I didn't like going to Derby that much. Derby was freezing cold. Gloucester was a slow, sticky dog. I didn't like batting on those. I had to learn how to do it. So, all in all, though, probably the best games I liked was playing against, the Surreys at the Oval, and Middlesex at Lords, and Lancashire at Old Trafford.
I remember one unbelievable innings against Worcester at Chelmsford when they had Glenn McGrath, and you got a big 100 in that game. And I was at the other end, and I remember I hit Glenn McGrath for 4, but it was the other end to him. It was the most amazing knock, and he just took the mickey out of him. All I remember, from bowling to him in the nets, and obviously watching him play as well, that time from the other end, most of the time from the pavilion, is how he kept coming at you. He just come at you the whole time. There's this huge kookaburra bat. It must have been illegal. That big pad coming forward and just hitting cover, mid-off, extra cover. Any young cricketer now playing the V, Stewie Lord, the guy to watch.
Yeah. Peter, Stuart was mentioning there about the pace attack. Talk us through innings of yours and a partnership of yours and John Childs. Going back in 1992, when you put on 79 against Hampshire. It was not only was it a wonderful performance, a last wicket pair, but it was significant towards our county championship win that season, wasn't it? Because it eked out a lead for us, and you were facing Malcolm Marshall, who was no gentle pace, was he?
Not at all. No. That was the game that actually sort of clinched the championship last year. We were presented with a trophy at the end of that game, but sort of when someone like me walks out to the middle there, the fast bowler, what he wants to do is bowl you out or knock you over so he can go put his feet up. So he's going to run in hard at you. And
that was his chest pad. That was his chest pad, that game.
And, like I said earlier, I wasn't the bravest and I didn't have all that much talent. So I just figured to myself, right, I'm just going to give myself a bit of room. I'm going to try and stay out the way of the ball and have a swing. And I would sort of just back away and he would bowl at the stumps and I'd just manage to get something on it and it'd fly through the offside for 4. And then in the end there, he lost it and started to try and bowl at me, which wasn't particularly pleasant. So I remember it well. And there's one instance when I did have my chest pad on and it hit me in the chest, but apparently I shouted before it hit me. But there you go.
We heard it in the clubhouse before it hit.
I never used to enjoy batting, particularly against fast bowlers, because they were always going to if you hung around, they're always going to shove it up you, and
Yeah.
you couldn't give it to them back as a spin bowler. So it was just open season on you.
Yeah. Well, there was a sumptuous cover drive off of Malcolm Marshall during that innings, Peter. And it would appear from the sidelines from where I was watching that for just an instant you admired the shot, but very quickly thought, my God, what have I done here? Is that fair assessment of that situation?
Well, I tried not to look at him. Every time I hit the ball, I would just I wouldn't look at him. I wouldn't engage. I wouldn't want to try and wind him up anymore. I was just trying to stay safe, if you like, and just grab a few runs. And Charlie's at the other end there, sort of slogging the spinners. He got 40 odd, that sort of thing there. So it was a decent partnership, and it helped us to get a lead in an important game.
Yeah,
Paul. Another recollection of Sachi facing fast bowling or not facing fast bowling is a memory of us at Lancashire playing at Old Trafford. Wazim Akram was at one end, bowling quite quickly, and Mike Watkinson bowled the other end. I think he just bowled off spin for the first year that time, or it may have been. And I was batting with him, and I hit a single to mid-off, but there was no mid-off. It was extra cover. And I've hit an easy single. He's gone, no, he didn't move. You face him, I'll have winger. I face. That's the only time, don't get me wrong, I was no better, but the only time ever I thought I was going to get hurt, because Wazim then knew I was going to face him. He went from trying to get me out, he did have a no ball, I was happy to go, but I have to say. He tried to hit me. He hit me on the head, he hit me on the shoulder, he hit me on the back. He ran down the wicket on reverse sweep into me. And I thought then, fate Sachi, you face Watkinson, and I'll face Wazim bowling rockets. Yeah, that's the first time I thought I was going to get hurt.
Yeah, and the good thing about it was that Wazim Akram had an action you couldn't pick up particularly easy either. That made it so much more difficult. So,
yeah. Guys, we're coming towards the end of this. It's been absolutely superb talking to you. Just like, if you wouldn't mind, just leave us with one thought from each of you on your time playing for Essex cricket. Stuart?
Wouldn't change it for the world. Absolutely loved every minute of it. We had success. We had some great times, had some down times, but all in all, still a lot of great mates in Essex. When I'm back there, it's like going home. So love Essex with a passion.
Thanks, Stuart. Mark?
Yeah, echo that. I mean, it's given my whole career, 15 years of Essex cricket has given me what I'm now a cricket master at a school in Hertfordshire. It's given me everything. I'm honoured and proud to have played cricket, full stop, but even more so to play at Essex, at such a club where you're still held in a high esteem. I go back to Chelmsford, which I don't occasionally because I'm working. I go there maybe once or twice a year, but they know you. Even the stewards down have changed. The stewards all changed from the ones that I was there. They still know you. The crowd, the members still know you. You go there to President's Day and they hang out at the back. It's the most amazing place. And when I went back there for Sky occasionally to do a bit of reporting, they was often interested to talk to you. So I watched the games going on, and it's a humbling experience to be a member of a club like Essex, and I owe what I've got now to that club.
Thank you, Mark. Peter?
Yeah, from my perspective, it was a privilege to play for Essex. Great team, great individuals within it, top characters, all of those sorts of things. But the thing for me about Essex was the fact that they gave me a chance when I was struggling in the game. Back end of the 1980s, non-batting off spinner, that sort of thing there, struggling at Leicester. Essex gave me a chance. They gave me a second chance, and I'm eternally grateful for that chance. And I had a privileged and charmed existence playing for them with great people, having success and fulfilling my dreams. So thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, thanks to you three for sharing so many memories. We could have gone on, but thanks very much. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you, each and every one of you. Thanks to Cloud FM for sponsoring this particular feature. And thanks to all of those watching. Thanks very much indeed. We'll see you all again soon. And take care, everybody. Keep safe.